across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I am Kevin O'Sullivan with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 hours of news, views and topical debate. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 03444 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I guarantee I will play your message out. It's Tuesday, April the 1st, April Fool's Day, but here's what's coming up. While he struts his stuff at his ludicrous international Smash the Gangs summit, Smash the Gangs, it emerges that Two-Tier has officially presided over the highest number of illegal foreigners coming to Britain ever. How much longer are we going to listen to this barefaced liar's empty rhetoric about a strategy that hasn't smashed a single gang, but has definitely made the migrant crisis a whole lot worse? 03444 499 1000. In other news, find out all about the Sri Lankan sex offender who is costing British taxpayers a fortune as he wages a campaign for asylum in the UK from the Chagos Islands. This guy has never been to Britain. His application to live here was quite rightly refused because he was a jailed sex offender. So why did we pay £100,000, I'll repeat that, £100,000 for a private jet to fly him to the Middle East for emergency medical treatment? What has this guy got to do with us? He's never been here. He's in jail on the Chagos Islands because he said, I want to live in Britain. We pay for him to go to the Middle East for emergency medical treatment. What has he got to do with us? Why is he our responsibility? Why are we such a ridiculous soft touch whenever the word migrant crops up? Oh, the Brits will foot the bill, the Brits will take him, the Brits will... It's just ridiculous. 03444 499 1000. Plus, Two-Tier Justice, as our increasingly absurd woke coppers release a report advocating different treatment for suspects of colour to white Brits. Shouldn't justice be blind? Shouldn't it make no difference at all what your colour is? What's going on here? 03444 499 1000. Also tonight, are the knives out for, and I quote, bone idol, close quotes, Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy and class warrior Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson. Lisa Nandy is thought by colleagues apparently to be way too lazy for a ministerial role. They say she's only putting in a couple of days a week. That much? That many? Hardly see her, do we? Let's hope that both Lisa and Bridget do get the chop, though. Who else is facing the axe, though, in Two-Tier's upcoming cabinet reshuffle? Who do you think the Prime Minister should jettison? Ed Miliband, anyone? 03444 499 1000. Plus, the eye-watering fat cat town hall salaries that add up to sky-high council tax bills for long-suffering residents. I mean you and me. I'm sure your council tax has gone up. Mine certainly has. Listen to this. 4,000 local borough workers are on £100,000 a year or more. 175 are earning over 200,000 grand. And 238 of these lucky local borough people are on more than the Prime Minister. 03444 499 1000. Ever get the feeling you're being ripped off, folks? Because you are. Let me know what you think about this. Your money into their pockets. Why is it that a person in Hampshire is earning £650,000 a year? Not even the chief executive. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, Hertfordshire cops have insisted they were right to raid the home of and arrest two loving parents who complained about their kids head teacher in a private WhatsApp group. We need to talk, don't we, about the sinister scourge of police overreach. A couple of parents with other parents in a WhatsApp group, a bit worried about the quality of in their view, the head teacher of their kids' school. They write down their reservations. The police try to arrest them. They spend 12 hours in a prison cell, in a police cell. I mean, what is going on here? Is Britain turning into an authoritarian tyranny? Sounds like it, doesn't it? 03444991000. Where do we live? The United Kingdom or North Korea? What do you think? Still with the Rozzers, cops on coke. A shock investigation by Talk, this station, has revealed the rising number of officers who arrive for duty drugged up or drunk. What about that? And finally, jailed for the shocking slaughter of his entire family is Jeremy Bamber's 40-year fight to prove his innocence about to finally succeed. Stay tuned for this extraordinary story. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together. Got a special treat for you this week because usually she doesn't come on until tomorrow, Wednesday, but we've had a bit of a reshuffle, so joining me for the next hour is Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Thanks for coming on board, Isabel.
Good evening. This North Korea thing, I mean, you know, we joke about it, but at least North Korea might be a bit cheaper than the United Kingdom right now with all the bills that everybody's facing. And this overreach from the police is just astonishing, isn't it?
It's frightening and it's sinister. You know, our friend and colleague, the Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, on Remembrance Sunday, 9:30 in the morning, two coppers standing there banging. She answered the door in a nightie. You know, we'll need to talk to you about some troublesome tweets that you posted on Twitter a year ago. And Essex Police, that was Essex Police, they came forward and said, oh, we stand by that. And now Hertfordshire have stood by arresting two parents. Their only crime, apparently, to post in a private WhatsApp parents group reservations about the quality of their kids' head teacher. That's all they did.
I know we're going to talk about this later, or you will later on the show, but I mean, this really, really worries me and infuriates me. Of course it isn't justifiable. For goodness sake, you know, the force needs to get a grip, look long and hard at itself and ask how it could possibly argue that it's justifiable to send multiple police. I don't even think they should have been sending any police to the door of that household. These were decent people, hardworking people, and their only worry was about their daughter's education. That has nothing to do with the law, and it is a complete nonsense that public resources are using this, are being abused in this way. And this stuff has got to stop. It really has. And if that takes some kind of new legislation or new regulation in order to get the message across to, frankly, clearly bone-thick police who can't discriminate between what is and isn't a justified use of public resources, then that's what we need to do, because I am hearing far too much of this.
I totally agree with you, Isabel. We'll come back to this issue a little later in this hour. But I think we're talking about really dumb, thick top cops, the chief constables, who don't understand the role of the police in a free democracy. You don't send 6 coppers to 2 middle-class parents whose only alleged crime was to take part in a WhatsApp group about the quality of their kids' school's head teacher. And guess what? 5 weeks later, those parents were told, oh, we've had to think about it and there will be no crime here, nothing to see here. Well, I hope that they sue the backside off of Hertfordshire Police to bring them into line. But we'll talk about that a little later. Well, let's have a little look first before we discuss the ludicrous Keir Starmer, our increasingly farcical Prime Minister. He has, of course, hosted this hilariously ridiculous summit on smashing the gangs. 40 representatives of 40 nations wasting their time and money, coming to London to listen to this guy's absolutely hopeless strategy about solving the migrant crisis. Smash the gangs, smash the gangs. But you haven't smashed any in 9 months. It obviously doesn't work. Anyway, here he is with confected fury addressing these poor people who've come across halfway across the world to listen to his utter claptrap. Here it goes.
My message to people smugglers is this. We're breaking your business model and leaving you nowhere to hide. We're working with law enforcement partners across the world to freeze your assets, to ban your travel, and put you behind bars. When I was this country's chief
that's obviously in his own office with his flags hanging behind him. False patriotism there. That guy hates Britain. We all know that. If he loved Britain, he might do something about our borders. Far more worried about Ukraine's sovereign borders than Britain's. But that's another issue. But here he is, actually at the statement at this summit, addressing these poor people who have to listen to this speech.
Illegal migration is a massive driver of global insecurity. It undermines our ability to control who comes here. And that makes people angry. It makes me angry, frankly. Because it's unfair on ordinary working people who pay the price. From the cost of hotels to our public services struggling under the strain.
Can you believe the barefaced cheek of this guy? This is all his fault. So it turns out that I'll smash the gangs. Oh, we'll sort this out. The Tories have ruined everything. I'll get rid of the Rwanda scheme. There'll be no more deterrence. But I will solve this crisis. So it now is official that this guy, since he became Prime Minister, has presided over the highest number of migrants coming to this country ever in history. There it is, his failure there to see. So 119 small boats, 642 migrants have arrived here since January the 1st. I think over 30,000 now have come since he became Prime Minister. More than 4,000 made that illegal voyage across the Channel last month in March alone. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, there are two Albanians on the front page of The Sun today posting a TikTok video boasting about how lovely their new hotel room is, telling fellow wannabe asylum seekers that once they pay their 3,000 quid fee to get across the Channel, your route to Britain is 100% guaranteed. For him to stand there and act as if he's doing something about this, when he's doing the square root of damn all, that's what makes me angry. I don't know about you.
Well, I think it makes millions of people in our country absolutely furious to hear Keir Starmer making such lame proclamations, saying, oh, believe me, it makes me angry. It doesn't make the population angry. It makes the population red hot mad. And that's how he as Prime Minister should feel about this massive, catastrophic breach of national security and total, once again, abuse of the British taxpayer. And, you know, for him to stand up there and say, my message to the vile people smuggling gangs is, we're leaving you nowhere to hide. No, you're not. They've got everywhere to hide. They don't even have to, hang on, they don't even have to hide. You know, they continue carrying out their business literally in broad daylight, and literally every day they continue to get away with it. And as you and I have discussed ad nauseum, this strategy is never going to work because you have to smash the market.
Exactly. Smash the migrants, stop the migrants, and that will automatically smash the gangs because, you know, call me controversial, but that means that the evil, faithful smuggling gangs have got no more customers, no one to bring across the Channel. Stop the migrants, you automatically smash the gangs. They're doing it in the wrong way. This strategy is a nonsense. It's performative politics. It's It's just headline hunting. It looks good in the papers. Smash the gangs. Well, you know, here we are, 9 months on. They haven't even come close to catching any people smugglers, let alone smashing any gangs at all. It's hysterical. It's a joke.
And it's an insult to people. And I do wonder, I will never condone anyone taking the law into their own hands or any type of vigilanteism. But I do wonder how far away we are from people getting down onto the Kent coast and taking the law into their own hands on this. I tell you, it's happened in other countries where people have got immensely frustrated by the total systematic failure of authorities to do anything. And I don't want that to happen. I hope that it doesn't happen. But how long can this go on for? How much longer can people be prepared to tolerate and expected to tolerate this invasion? Because that is what it is. It is little short of an invasion about which our government is doing the square root of nothing. And it is dangerous. And it is the government's duty to protect its citizens by allowing a never-ending flow of unknown characters. Many of them may not well wish us well and do not share our values. We don't know where they've come from. We don't know what their agenda is. What we do know is that they're going to cost us an awful lot of money, which we don't have. That is an utter dereliction of the government's duty, and it cannot go on.
Billions and billions and billions of pounds this crisis is costing us. It is absolutely terrifying. It's a scandal, and this government's doing nothing about it. Keir Starmer is doing absolutely nothing. Absolute disgrace. And just briefly before we go to break, just to highlight what a preposterous little man we have pretending to be our leader, wanting to be our Prime Minister, but frankly not really fulfilling that role in any way whatsoever. So he makes this speech yesterday at this stupid summit, which is just pointless and empty, but has to quickly hot-foot it out of there and across town to host a conference down in Downing Street about the fictional TV drama Adolescence, which I've watched. It's very good. Stars Stephen Graham. It's the story of a little 13-year-old white kid who gets kind of caught up in toxic masculinity, gets sucked into his dark little internet world in his bedroom and desensitized because he feels he's being badly treated contemptuously by young women of his age, goes and stabs one to death, a poor little girl to death. You know, it's a good story, very well told, and you know this has happened, but very, very rarely. Now, are you going to tell Keir Starmer, Isabel, or shall I, that this is a fictional drama, and there is no evidence that we have any problem at all with young boys, young white kids, boys going out and stabbing girls because of what they saw in the wonderful world of toxic masculinity, Andrew Tate and all that? There's no evidence for it at all. So he's just chasing some sort of phantom issue that attracts him because it's been on telly. Meanwhile, if you want to have a real crisis, you know, there's loads of evidence that loads and loads of black kids are stabbing each other to death in gang warfare. But of course, Keir Starmer doesn't want to go there because if he starts highlighting that, it'll make it look as if he might be a bit racist about young black kids. But he's very happy, very comfortable having a go at white kids and Andrew Tate and the like. We do not have a problem with little kids, 13-year-old teenagers going out and stabbing girls because of what they saw on the internet, and yet Keir Starmer's acting like it's real. It's really worrying.
Well, I finished watching Adolescence last night, and I did find it very, very powerful viewing, and I think it can prompt a lot of conversations. And just to play devil's advocate for a minute, I would point out that I think that the murderers of Brianna Jai, that was a white teenage boy, was one of the culprits there. So
yeah, but it wasn't a toxic masculinity problem. This is what Adolescence was about. It was about the Andrew Tate syndrome, toxic masculinity.
It was a bit about that. I mean, it doesn't go into, actually, the programme, that show doesn't go into the detail really of what he was looking at on the internet. So we're left to be unsure about exactly what.
It was porn. It was porn. There were pictures of. It was porn that he was looking at, hardcore porn.
We don't know fully what he was looking at in the show, but I think your point is that there's another point that you made there, which I fully agree with, which is the Prime Minister shouldn't be having policy shaped and pushed by Netflix dramas.
Exactly. That is my point. Yeah, that is my point.
You know, shoehorning this into the Prime Ministerial agenda just because it's something that everybody's talking about. I'm not actually sure. I'm still reflecting on the drama and what we are to make of it. I think there's so much to discuss there, but I don't think it's a cause for an immediate Prime Ministerial summit meeting.
Yeah, we've got to worry about what kids do see online and what they do when they're in their bedrooms looking at their computers and all that, and there is a problem there. But the contention of adolescence was loads of little boys are watching, incel stuff and toxic masculinity stuff and going out and stabbing little girls. Well, there isn't a problem. We don't have that problem. So Keir Starmer's going out dealing with a phantom issue that he saw on a TV drama. That to me is kind of worrying. Listen, let's go to break now. And when we come back, I've got a kind of Be Kind madness story that you won't believe. So that next, stay tuned.
The end of 31st of March, 6,543 illegal migrants arrived in the UK in small boats. That's a 33% increase on last year, which means that we're heading towards 80,000 arriving this year.
Oh, well done, Prime Minister.
£327 million is what we're going to spend just on this cohort in 1 year alone. That money could go to at least 13,000 to 14,000 couples to be able to get them on a starter home.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakshott. Isabel, this is one of those be kind stories that makes me want to be very unkind on a general basis. It's really infuriating. It's mad. Back in 2021, we're talking about a 34-year-old Sri Lankan sex offender. Now, a large boat of Tamils fled Sri Lanka. There is a bit of war and torture going on there. And they arrived in the not so far away Chagos Islands. We'll talk about Chagos Islands in a different context in just a little while. But they arrived at the Chagos Islands, the big main island of Diego Garcia. They all apply for asylum in Britain. 61 of them get accepted. This guy doesn't get accepted, and I'll tell you why. Because when he arrived in Diego Garcia, he went round terrorising the local female population and sexually assaulted several of them. As a result, he went to jail for 6 months. And then applied still for asylum in Britain. Now, for once in our lives, we were quite sensible and said, no, we really don't want a foreign sex offender coming to live here. With the greatest lack of respect, that's a no. This guy then tries to commit suicide, does himself some kind of damage, clearly. And then we, British taxpayers, then, after he hurt himself in his suicide attempt, we paid £100,000 to fly him to the Middle East for emergency medical treatment, where he was saved. Then we paid a load more money to fly him back to the Chagos Islands, where he continues to reside, still trying to come here, but our diplomats and British lawyers are desperately trying to find him a third country, because we don't want him. The Chagos Islands don't want him. Sri Lanka no longer wants him, so we're trying to find him somewhere else. Why? Why? Why did we pay for him to go to the Middle East? Why are we trying to find him another country to go to? What's he got to do with us? Do we now accept that if somebody just says, I want to live in Britain, that he becomes our entire responsibility? That seems to be what's happened here.
This is a most extraordinary story, and in my opinion, this individual should simply have been taken back to Sri Lanka. He's lost any right whatsoever to claim asylum in any British territory, having committed all these crimes. He isn't our problem. We shouldn't be having to pay for him. And I think at this point, a serious inquiry is needed. It shouldn't take very long. It'll only take a couple of hours at the most to establish what happened as to who authorised these private jet flights. Which person, at what level was this signed off? Because I don't think this would have been a junior decision maker to have a private jet take somebody from Diego Garcia to the Middle East because they've had some suicide attempt. They're not a British citizen. Frankly, I'm not sure any normal British citizen would get this level of luxury.
You're right, yeah.
Anyway, I mean, it beggars belief, doesn't it? So this surely was signed off at the highest level, in which case we need to know who signed it off. Was it a junior minister? If so, which department? Was it a Foreign Office official that signed this off, or was it a junior Foreign Office minister, or was it the Home Office? Yeah. What was the justification? And frankly, whoever signed that off should be sacked, because once again, it was a flagrant abuse of taxpayers' money. How long is it going to take before this government, and also, by the way, our judges, realise that Great Britain is not a charity? We are not Médecins Sans Frontières. We are the UK PLC, and our shareholders are the British people. And we should stop behaving like a charity, and we should stop expecting the people of the UK to give unlimited donations to terrible causes.
Yeah. Let me ask the audience, what do you think, folks? I mean, why on earth did we pay £100,000 for this guy to go on a private jet to the Middle East for top quality medical treatment. Then we flew him back to the Chagos Islands, where, as far as I understand it, he might still be in jail because he's a sex offender. Normally, I might say about such a guy, oh, I feel sorry for him, but he's not our responsibility. I stick to the second part of my statement. He's not our responsibility, never was, in my view. But do I feel sorry for him? No, I don't tend to feel sorry for sex attackers. So that brings it onto a whole new level. But not only is this guy not our responsibility, he's a convicted, jailed sex offender. And we take it upon ourselves to make him our responsibility purely because he said, I want to live in Britain. I mean, that is insane. That's absolutely insane and, frankly, cavalier with taxpayers' money at a time when we're all hurting badly. We're going to talk about that in a little while. But, you know, the awful April, all the prices are rising, council taxes, everything is going up. Water bills. We're all struggling, and officials from our government, you know, are playing fast and loose with our money because they read The Guardian and they want to be kind. It's got to stop. I agree with you. Let me know what you think, folks. 03444991000. Still with the Chagos Islands. Donald Trump. What do you make of this? Donald Trump has signed off on the proposed deal for Britain to give Mauritius the Chagos Islands, including that strategic airport on the island we were just discussing, the main island of the archipelago, Diego Garcia. So people like you and me have been very much against this. A lot of sensible people have been against this. It's a very strategic set of islands in the middle of the South Seas, from where American and British jets monitor the world. They check on Afghanistan, on the Middle East, the Far East. It's very strategic. And Donald Trump has now signed off on what I think was always a crazy plan by Keir and his lawyer mates to give these islands to Mauritius, 1,300 miles away. Mauritius has never ruled them, never had sovereign control over these islands. When we first said, you want the Chagos Islands, apparently the Mauritians went, why? But then we sweetened the pill by offering them, I think, if I remember rightly, something like £9 billion over the next 20 years. So we're going to give them a load of money in order to give them the Chagos Islands, these strategic islands. We will retain the right to rent Diego Garcia, I think, for 90 years or so. But we should bear in mind that the best friend of Mauritius is China. So all in all, I'm surprised that Donald Trump has given this ludicrous deal his blessing.
Absolutely. It's really disappointing. I think a couple of things going on here. One, Donald Trump is very, very focused in terms of international affairs on trying to sort out the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and rightly so. That's very much his priority. And then there's also Israel, Gaza in the inbox. And then somewhere way, way, way down is this little local difficulty the Brits have with the Chagos Islands. I really thought that he would listen to his British friends on this one and not go along with it. But there may be a very pragmatic reason why the US president has gone for this, and that is because we're not actually asking the Americans to pay us anything for the use of Diego Garcia for their military base. I mean, we of course have some upside from that, from shared intelligence, but I mean, Donald Trump's probably looking at this thinking, well, this is a no-brainer. You know, I'm getting something for nothing. And if the Brits want to be completely stupid enough to give billions of pounds to Mauritius to give away their own territory, well, you know, let them knock themselves out.
Yeah, and I think there's I'm a great admirer of Donald Trump, but there is that American thing, and I say this with great respect. I love the American people. I lived there for 10 years and all that, so don't get me wrong. But Americans, they do constitutionally have a bit of a problem worrying about places that are a long way away. And by that, I don't only mean the Chagos Islands, I mean Europe as well. So it may be that Donald Trump's basically going, the Chagos, what? Oh, let them have it, you know. But either way, it looks like we've lost that battle. So we are going to be giving the Chagos Islands away to Mauritius. And when I say giving them away, giving them to Mauritius while also giving Mauritius billions of pounds. What a marvellous deal. What a marvellous deal. Still, in my view, totally baffling. When we come back, Isabel, we're going to talk about the Sentencing Council, two-tier justice, and the fact that while the Sentencing Council has been forced to abandon its outrageous directive of two-tier treatment of ethnic people, cultural different people, the police are still sticking to two-tier justice. We'll find out about that after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, so the Sentencing Council, to my surprise, I've got to say, I didn't really trust the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood in all of this, nor did I trust Keir Starmer. But then again, I never trust Keir Starmer in any given situation. But Shabana Mahmood, to her credit, she said, I'm not having this, when the Sentencing Council outrageously gave guidance to magistrates and judges to say that people from ethnic backgrounds, ethnic minorities, religious minorities, Muslims and the like, trans people, gays, should get more lenient treatment from the British courts than, shall we say, traditional white British citizens. An outrageous two-tier enshrinement. And Shabana Mahmood, to her credit, said if you do this, this will be two-tier justice. So today, when it was supposed to come into play, we would officially, and the Labour government would have confirmed it, have had two-tier justice in our courts. To their credit, the government has strong-armed the Sentencing Council into dropping this ludicrous instruction, ludicrous guidance, and very, very unfair, unjust guidance. But you know what they say, you know, little steps forward, small steps back. For every step forward you make, you go in reverse pretty quickly. Britain's woefully woke coppers have struck again. The police of Britain have issued a report called, its very name makes me suspicious. It's called Anti-Racism Commitment. Anyway, this report tells Rozzers to deal with black suspects of colour, differently from white suspects. The report declares that the force's commitment to racial equality or equity did not mean treating everyone the same or being colourblind. Officers must now, according to this new initiative, consider cultural impact and community trauma when using their powers. In other words, if the local mob doesn't like it, don't arrest crooks of colour. So this is the police saying, no, we mustn't be colourblind. We must check everyone's colour and deal with them accordingly. And we deal with people of colour more leniently than we do with white people. What the hell is going on?
I mean, this is absolutely outrageous. What do they mean, community trauma? Could somebody who was part of these recommendations please come on our show and talk us through what you mean by community trauma? I think I know what you mean. Yeah. I think what you mean is that there may be a baying mob who starts shrieking racism if you arrest someone rightfully and they don't happen to be a white person. Is that what you mean? Because if that's what you mean, then that is not just policing. It is not fair, it is not right, and it shouldn't be operating in our country. And policing should be colourblind. I just...
As should all justice in this country. It should not matter your race, your creed, your colour, your class, your gender, your sex. None of that should matter a jot in the eyes of the law. And yet we've had this sentencing council for the last 3 weeks trying to foist this on us and saying, by the way, before Shabana got tough with them, saying, oh, we don't feel we need to change our instructions at all. And now we've got the police enshrining it. And I'll tell you what they're talking about in terms of the trauma to the local community. They're talking about, for example, something that you know a lot about, the riots in Hare Hills in Leeds, when the local ethnic minorities were busy rioting, furious, about something that turned out to be completely unjustified, but they were furious. And the police just pulled out for 5 hours and let them get on with it. Also, during the summer riots after Southport in Birmingham, when the local Muslims rose up and rioted, the police pulled out. And they made an announcement saying we've talked to our partners and our stakeholders and decided that a softly approach was best. So that's what they're talking about. When the local ethnic community are upset, the police are basically saying, leave them alone.
Yeah, and this, as you say, this is already happening. I mean, again, you could use the example of the Pakistani grooming and rape gangs. Why was that treated so differently? Because they were worried about community trauma. In other words, some awkward problem. It's the same issue, wasn't it, with the length of time that it took to charge those thugs in the case of the Manchester
Airport
outrage. You know, why? Because of community trauma. This is an absolute nonsense, and people are beyond fed up of it. There is no way any community should get special treatment, whether they're a white community, a brown community, a black community. I really don't care. It is what matters is whether they have actually broken the law or there's reasonable grounds to suspect they have. And then all justice should be proportionate, as should policing, which is why there shouldn't be 6 police officers sent to a middle-class family complaining on a WhatsApp group. What about the community trauma to white neighbourhoods around that? No one seems to care about that, do they?
They certainly don't. And what they essentially mean with this community trauma lark is that if someone from an ethnic minority stabs someone or breaks the law, if the local community are then outraged and furious by the police trying to arrest this person, then the police are sort of basically saying, well, you know, the community trauma is more important than the crime, so don't arrest. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Again, as we touched on earlier, Isabel, one of the problems I think we have with policing at the highest levels is too many top cops are just not the sharpest pins in the pack. They don't quite get it.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid it's not even just the top cops. It's at the lower level. Of course, they'll all say they're just following orders, but the caliber of these officers that are making these decisions and judgments is simply not high enough. We're not recruiting people who are sufficiently intelligent, sufficiently smart to be able to make judgments. That's what's required here. You know, the people that have the capacity, that are allowed to make judgment calls, because I appreciate, you know, at the bottom rungs of policing, you are just doing what you're told. And I understand that, you know, that has to be the case at junior levels. But further up the food chain, we need people who are able to exercise some discretion, who are able to look at things and say, what is proportionate here? What is sensible? What is a good use of resources? What is a good use of Crown prosecution time? And far too often this isn't happening. And what really worries me is that this seems to be escalating, you know, in so many different areas, whether it's infringements of freedom of speech, or whether it is, you know, not prosecuting people or not going after people because of fears of community trauma. This isn't getting better, it's getting way worse. It
really, really is. It's two-tier justice, two-tier policing, two-tier justice. And last time I checked, we don't approve of two-tier justice, and we certainly don't approve of two-tier policing, but the cops don't seem to have got the memo. It's very worrying. When we come back, let's talk a bit of politics. We're hearing there's a big cabinet reshuffle coming up over the summer. Keir Starmer not happy with the performance of some of his secretaries of state. Not surprising, really. And the two top ones in the firing line could be Lisa Nandy, who apparently colleagues believe is bone idle, their words, not mine, and also that terrifying class warrior, that little communist, what's her name, Bridget Phillipson, the dangerous education secretary. We'll talk about that after this break.
tend to tell the Americans what to do in their own country, and usually, the president or the vice president of the United States wouldn't really be interfering in domestic politics in the UK. So yeah, huge part of me says that. But at the same time, I really do think that they have a point, particularly in this case. I mean, these buffer zones are 150 metres away from any abortion clinics. Now, if protesters are standing outside those clinics, they're hurling abuse at women, they're threatening them, then of course, something should be done. They should be arrested.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. There may be changes in this terrible government over the next few months. There's increasing talk of a cabinet reshuffle. I don't suppose that, unfortunately, Rachel from Accounts will go yet. The Chancellor is always difficult to get rid of for any Prime Minister. Well, first of all, Isabel, what are your thoughts? We're going to talk about Lisa Nandy. Apparently, too many colleagues feel she's very lazy. She only does 2 days a week, they say. I don't know the truth of this. Certainly, I believe she's been very negligent presiding over the decline of the BBC. She, in effect, has not done enough to tell the BBC you're allowing your newsroom to descend into anti-Semitism, into anti-Israel hatred, which that should be her damn job, and she's doing nothing about it. As usual, Labour people, socialists, terrified of tackling or clashing with the public service broadcaster. She hasn't done enough there. Also, Bridget Phillipson, apparently Keir's very upset with what he sees as her mishandling of the academy school situation. He thinks she has been very remiss in her dealing with that situation, so she could go. I think Keir Starmer probably feels that Bridget Phillipson is a bit too combative. She's a serious class warrior, obviously waging war on public schools, etc., etc. So I think his centrist instincts rail against the likes of Phillipson, and I hope they do. But before we discuss those two, we haven't got too long, but what do you make of the fact that Starmer's communications chief, Matthew Doyle, has suddenly quit, gone without further notice? He's been in charge of the sort of public PR operation at Downing Street for 9 disastrous months. He says it's time to hand the baton on to a new pair of hands. I think he has been resigned, as they say in politics. He's been told to sling his hook, because it's typical. You see, people like Starmer don't get it. You should put proper journalists in charge of your communications operation. They understand how the papers work. They understand how the TV stations and the radio stations work. Matthew Doyle didn't have a clue, and the disaster has been horrible for us all to behold. So I think he's been given his marching orders.
Well, a couple of things. First, really quickly, because I know we don't have much time, I do want to say, because I was very disparaging about the police in the last segment, I just want to acknowledge that a lot of police officers are absolutely furious as well about having to carry out these orders. And I'm sure many of them are incredibly frustrated about being sent on stupid missions to arrest people who don't need to be arrested. Having parked that, I would say about Matthew Doyle, he is a very long marcher as a Labour apparatchik. I actually remember dealing with Matthew Doyle during the Blair years. So this is a very experienced behind-the-scenes operator. He is charmless, and you're right, he's never worked, to the best of my knowledge.
Useless as well, I would suggest.
Let's just judge.
He's made a real cock-up of it, hasn't he?
Yeah, let's judge the results they're getting. I mean, this administration gets the most terrible press every day, and that's because it is completely useless and is failing on all of its core offers. So I don't think most of our listeners will care too much about Matthew Doyle going. What they'll care about is that the government continues to fail, and no amount of spin. I mean, no spin doctor could possibly make what this government is doing look good. So to that extent, maybe we should feel sorry for Matthew Doyle. How could he possibly succeed given the plate he's been, the dish he's been served? it was never going to be possible to make it taste.
Sure. Well, let's quickly talk about Lisa Nandy. As I say, the word is that Starmer and the gang think that she's rather lazy. They're saying, not their words, not mine, that she's only putting in a couple of days a week. And I think where she's been very remiss is with the BBC. The BBC is sliding. Its journalism is plummeting into a kind of weird Jew-hating abyss. And I think the Culture Secretary's job should have been to do something about this. But she stands meekly by and does nothing. Her response to the Olympic Committee's outrageous failure to protect women in sport in the Olympic Games, particularly in boxing, where we saw in the summer that horrible spectacle of, blokes beating up women in the boxing room. She just said, oh, well, it should be done sport by sport. She's just toothless and useless, and now it seems lazy. So she may go. And also apparently Bridget Phillipson, who even Keir Starmer feels is a little bit too left-wing for his liking. I suppose the one we'd really like to see go is Ed Miliband. But your thoughts about the two women, and maybe Ed?
Well, my thoughts on Lisa Nandy is I can't think of a single interesting or impressive thing she's done. I rather like her personally, but I can't think of anything that she's done in her time in the job. So I think she's an easy target. As for Bridget Phillipson, I would love to see the back of her. This is somebody who's presided over an absolute disaster in her ideological class warfare. She's done this thing to private schools. And what really shocked me, but I suppose didn't surprise me in a way, was that despite this policy, she has never visited a single private school, despite having imposed this existential tax on the entire sector. And as for her assault on academies, that is a complete disgrace. And, for schools like Michaela, the best performing school in the country, to feel under threat as a result of her proposals is a travesty. And I hope she goes, but I also hope David Lammy goes, because he's also useless. There's a long list of useless...
Well, what about Ed Miliband is useless and extremely dangerous. One does hear that he may not be long for this world in terms of the cabinet.
I'd be surprised. He'd be a dangerous enemy, I think, for Keir Starmer. If I had to bet on it, I would say survive, I'm afraid.
Indeed. But of course, if they get rid of the two women, that will be par for the course for Labour, because if they stuck around, there could be a sort of outside chance that one day Labour might have a female leader, but, probably not this century.
Probably not. Well, our Ange, I think, has got a good claim to staying in her job. She is still the most interesting and character.
Interesting, yeah. Loves to go on safari, by the way, when she goes to Ethiopia.
Oh, let's not talk about Ethiopia, please.
I want to go and see the lions. No, Angela, you're working. Can't I go on safari? No, Angela, you can't. You're representing your country. I'm sorry, you're not on holiday. Anyway, enough of Musrena. Been a great hour, Isabel. Thank you so much. You'll be back tomorrow for more of the same. Can't wait. Thank you very much. That's Isabel Oakeshott Talks International editor. Now, when we come back, we're going to deal with something called the Town Hall Rich List. It's the Taxpayers Alliance. They publish this every year. It's all the town hall workers, the chief executives and all the people who work there, and how much they earn. So many of them earning over £200,000 a year. Many of them earning more than the Prime Minister. Absolute crazy. We'll talk about that after this break. Stick around.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In about 30 minutes or so, I'm going to be taking your calls. 03444991000. You know what we're talking about. Keir Starmer saying he's going to solve the migrant crisis. Smash the gang, smash the gang. He's presiding over the highest number of illegal migrants coming to this country in British history. He is not only failing to solve the migrant crisis, he is making it significantly worse. In fact, the worst it has ever been. And he has the temerity to host a summit. 40 nations, representatives of 40 nations coming here to lecture them about his amazing strategy. Smash the gangs. It's not working. He hasn't smashed any gangs. We've got more illegal migrants coming here than ever, and it is costing us 15 billion quid a year and more. It's a joke. You want to know why you're struggling under the cost of living crisis? Partly it's because Keir Starmer doesn't know what to do about the migrant crisis. 0344 499 1000. Should we have paid £100,000 to send a Sri Lankan sex offender from the Chagos Islands to the Middle East for emergency medical treatment by private jet? We paid for that. Why? Because he said he wanted to live in Britain. We said, well, you can't. You're a sex offender. You just done 6 months in jail. I want to live there. Oh, well, it's because you asked to live here, we'll pay for all your expenses in the Chagos Islands. £100,000. It's not our responsibility. 0344 499 1000. And should the police be treating people of colour differently to white people, because that is a new guidance in a report called Commitment to Anti-Racism. So that's the police. Treat people of colour more leniently than white people. Two-tier justice, that's what it is. 0344 499 1000. And finally, if you want to get on the blower, Keir Starmer is going to sack a few cabinet ministers, or one or two anyway. Who would you most like to see go? I know it's a tough one, isn't it? I can come up with about 10 I'd like to go right now. But who would you most like to see go from this hopeless, incompetent cabinet? 0344 499 1000. Now, you also might want to get on the phone about our next item, the astronomical, eye-watering amount of money being earned by people who work in our town halls. Town hall millionaires. The Taxpayers Alliance has published its new town hall rich list. So for the next 30 minutes, it's going to be a trip down memory lane. We're not going to call her my guest, because she's much more than that. She's my co-host. It is the great Alex Phillips. Hello, Alex.
Hello, my darling. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Very, very angry as always. But at least glad to have you on the show. And I thought of you when I saw this, because I think it just fits into everything that's going wrong with this country, everything that's wrong about this country. Our friends at the Taxpayers Alliance, who do a damn fine job, have published their annual Town Hall Rich List, revealing that nearly 4,000 local borough staff are earning more than £100,000. That's in 23-24, so last year effectively. That's up by more than a quarter from the previous year. Also, the number paid more than £150,000 has hit a record high of 829, and 175 are taking home more than 200 grand. Altogether, this is my favourite statistic, I think it's 138 council workers earn more than the Prime Minister. Now, we know that our council tax is soaring. We also know we get pretty bad service for that. But I've always said this, you know, when people go, where does all the money go? I'll tell you, a load of it goes into the pockets of the people who work in the town hall. In Hampshire, This person isn't even the chief executive. This is a person who is the director of culture, community and business services. Guess how much he or she earns? This is amazing. £651,158. I mean, we are being ripped off on a monumental scale, aren't we?
It's insane. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with this. So first of all, if there were competent people in councils who are managing the budgets, and councils weren't in a ridiculous amount of debt, councils up and down the country are paying per day within the range of £50,000, £150,000 of interest on their debt. That's how bad they've been budgeting. So if these people were competent and that wasn't the situation and councils were a slush fund of money, I wouldn't have too much of a problem in rewarding excellence. But you couldn't get away with this in the private sector, could you? To dismally fail at every single turn, fail to economically deliver local services, have to keep asking your residents for more and more in terms of council tax, loads of them in special measures, the amount of corruption as well. We don't talk enough about corruption in local authorities. It's rife. Do you remember that story of the one council, it might have been Birmingham, I think, where there was a taxi driver who was taking a special needs kid to school. That's what he did. And it was like millions of pounds for the contract.
A 20 million a year contract to transport one kid to school. I remember that. Yeah, exactly.
But the other thing that I find quite embarrassing about all of this is, and I don't know if this is going to be a popular opinion, but it's pretty rubbish that we pay the Prime Minister such a poxy amount of money for running the country. I mean, what does that say about the establishment? Not that I love Sir Keir Starmer and want to give him a golden handshake, but it is a kind of pitiful amount. When you kind of look in the sort of grand scheme of things and jobs and wage inflation, that we pay the Prime Minister less than we're paying people in local authorities.
Yeah, I mean, there is something warped and perverse about that. And I think you're right. This is a perennial story. Earning more than the Prime Minister. That's because we pay the Prime Minister, I think, £170,000 a year. And loath as I am to say that any politician deserves a pay rise, we could get out of this problem of people earning more than the Prime Minister if we did pay the Prime Minister a sensible amount of money for running the entire country. Doesn't explain, though, Alex, why it is that, I don't know, the people of Hampshire think that their director of business control or something should earn, what is that? That's about 4 times more than the Prime Minister. Why are there so many chief executives of local councils who are earning more than the Prime Minister? In other words, it is considered that they have a tougher job running a local borough than the Prime Minister does running the entire country. That doesn't stack up, does it?
Crazy. I'd love to know this person's job description. Are they just in charge of the New Forest ponies or something and then take home that handsome sum of money? I mean, it's absolutely crazy. It's eye-watering. Now, look, I think that it's too easy to go down the obvious route of saying, well, if you're in a public sector job, you shouldn't be paid vast amounts of money. This is taxpayers' money after all. And in many respects, I agree with that sentiment. But we do want to make sure that we've got talented people who work in local authorities, who work in government, who work in the civil service, people that, would otherwise go to the private sector where they could earn more money, but we need their skills to run things properly. But the problem is this, isn't it, Kev? We all know that things are not being run properly. I think everyone listening to this, I would be amazed if one person listening to this says, do you know what? Actually, I think my local council's doing a sterling job. The potholes are all filled. The services are brilliant. Loads of doctors' appointments available. The schools are running perfectly. All the shops are doing brilliantly. The business rates are low. The town is booming. Law enforcement is excellent. There's not a bit of graffiti anywhere. And nobody's taking a special needs kid to school for £5 million a year. I'd love it if somebody would message in the programme or phone in and say, do you know what? My local authority is excellent. Because I'd be amazed. I'd be amazed if there's a single local authority in the whole blimmin' country that people look at and go, they're doing a great job.
You never hear it, do you? You never hear anyone say, my local town hall is magnificent. You never hear it because none of them are. They're all a disaster. you've got Birmingham, which is falling apart at the seams. Actually, let's just go off piece ever so slightly. Did you see this story yesterday? You'll like this one. You know that guy Taher Ali? He's the MP for Birmingham Moseley, and he is the one that a few months back urged Keir Starmer to bring back the blasphemy laws because he was worried about people being sacrilegious towards religious texts. And it's a bit like, well, thanks, Taher, but I'm afraid the Middle Ages are over. Now, he now is campaigning for a new airport in Mupir, which is in Kashmir. That's his big campaign. He represents a big constituency in Birmingham where the rubbish is literally neck high and there are rats roaming the streets the size of cats. His priority is an airport in Kashmir.
And what does he expect the UK government to do about that? Go and build it? I mean, why would we be doing that? It's absolutely mental. Yeah. And the thing is, actually, sometimes when you look at these, especially Labour Party local council candidates from Pakistan, they go around and they don't say, vote for me for the Labour Party. They say, vote for me for Imran Khan in Pakistan.
Yeah, I know.
The basis of party politics back at home. And that there are a lot of Kashmiris in the UK. They might want to fly home, and wouldn't it be great if they had an airport? Great. Tell it to the, Kashmiri government. Well, Pakistan, whatever it is, Pakistan.
Do you know? No. You know what it is? Pakistan. It's the Kashmir district, or area, which technically I think is the lawless zone, but it comes under Pakistani control. Anyway, what he says, old Taher Ali, is a lot of my constituents are Pakistanis, and when they go home, the airport that they have to use is a 3-hour drive away from where they live, and you think, well, okay, that sounds a bit awkward, but wait a minute, let me think about this. I don't care. What's that got to do with Britain?
It's utterly insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it's a 3-hour drive the 3 hours then.
I don't care. It's got nothing to do. These MPs and more and more local councillors who see themselves as the MP for Gaza, or the local council representative for Bangladesh or whatever. I mean, that's a worrying scourge, I think.
That's what I worry about. I worry about in constituencies where they've got those pro-Gaza MPs, whether those MPs actually care about all the constituents or if they only care about the Muslim ones. Because it seems to me they campaign largely only on Muslim issues. They jump up in Parliament and say, yeah, we want cousin marriage. Woo, incest. Yeah, isn't that great? They want to bring in laws of blasphemy and Islamophobia. They want an airport in Kashmir. And you kind of think there must be huge subsections of their constituencies, the white working classes going, what's this got to do with me? Have you got any thought in your entire brain about my existence? Yeah, they're largely the ones who are paying the bills, paying these people's salaries.
Well, I think this feeds into what we were discussing just now, the overpaying of council staff. There's just a general sense that, it's us and them. The people in the higher echelons of the public sector, including town hall billionaires and MPs who represent Gaza, just don't care about us. They're busy feathering their own nests and they don't care about the people. And we find ourselves in a sort of position of impotence, just shouting, will you people do something for us? Can you fix the potholes? Could you maybe come round once, a little bit more than every 3 weeks to collect the rubbish? Stop paying yourself 600 grand a year. I mean, it's this feeling that the body politic no longer cares about the people.
All it wants from me is to pay more and more and more tax. I'm one of the highest tax contributors under IR35. I barely get to keep any of my own money. For some Somalian family of 7 kids to be put up at a £1.5 million house in Hampstead or something. And I'm kind of like, what do I get from the state? I can barely get a doctor's appointment. I don't have kids, so they're not in education or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, I literally don't take anything from the state, and I give tens of thousands of pounds year after year after year. I can't even buy a house. I'm not even on the ladder. Sometimes I think life would be better if I went over to France and came back to Britain on a dinghy.
That's what somebody said about hospital waiting times when you go to A&E. Sometimes you have to wait 20 hours and that kind of thing. So somebody said that actually, if you want to get immediate treatment, it would be quicker to get a ferry over to Calais. And then get yourself a small boat, get on one of those dinghies, come back as a migrant, say you got something wrong with you, and they'll take you straight to A&E and you would be seen quicker. That's another scourge of our increasingly weird country. This kind of preferential treatment for foreigners.
I know.
Why is that?
Preferential treatment, but we're essentially punished for having the audacity of being the native population. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Harsher prison sentences. You better pay for everyone else. You horrible racist. You were born in Britain as a white British person. You must be the devil. It's our blimmin' country. Like, stop bossing us around and pushing us about the place, asking us to pay for everything and then treating us like a pile of rubbish. It really gets on my nerves. And do you know what really upsets me as well? When you realise how much the government doesn't pay for, right? We're still a G7 nation, and yet end-of-life care, hospice care, one thing that we found out with the, euthanasia bill is the fact that the government barely gives any money to hospices.
Oh, no, I know about this. The hospices have to raise their own money. I tried to do it several times when I was on the national papers.
The charity I support is the air ambulance, right? Because my uncle ended up in
that's not paid for. Hospices and air ambulance. Why can't the government pay for that? Would be a good idea, wouldn't it?
Putting up migos in 4-star hotels who've broken into the country, who have paid the worst kind of human being, people traffickers, thousands of pounds. It's like, oh, you got thousands of pounds in your bank, have you? To pay some Kurdish trafficker, but you then have to take off the state to stay in a hotel here. Thousands of pounds. You could go to most countries in the world and spend that thousands of pounds and have a very nice lifestyle. So what are you doing over here, you sponger? And we pay these people to have wonderful accommodation, driving lessons, PlayStations, tickets to the football, massages, goat yoga, whatever it is. And we're not even looking after the people who are sick and dying.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Over the past 5 years, something called, we've paid for this, it's called the Asylum Support Scheme. And it is basically giving free stuff to foreigners who've broken into our country illegally. We put them in a hotel, as you suggest. We then give them trips to the local zoo, trips around the local football stadium, trips to the cricket, trips to the theatre. We pay for all this. We also give them free driving lessons, which we paid for. Kent County Council alone over the past year spent £20 million on free driving lessons and tests for illegal migrants. So we over the past 5 years, guess what the British taxpayers' Asylum Support Scheme bill has been? £6.6 billion.
Goodness. It's utterly insulting. And I don't understand why, for successive governments, what to do about this situation has been like trying to crack the riddle of the Sphinx. It's very easy. You defend the borders. We're an island. When boats come halfway across the channel, you go, you can't enter. Sorry. And you drag them back to France. It's blimmin' simple. If I tried to break into a country, if I suddenly turned up in, I don't know, Moldova or Malawi or something uninvited and stormed the border, I'd probably be shot. You know, what you don't do is invite people in and go, well done for breaking in. Yeah. No, fine.
Here's a lot of free stuff. Here's 45 quid a week. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. Of course, Keir Starmer is far more interested in protecting the sovereign borders of Ukraine than he is our sovereign borders. Doesn't seem to give a damn about ours, but is obsessed with Ukraine. So something wrong there as well. Listen, we're going to go to break now, Alex, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this increasingly authoritarian state that we live in and the way the police are behaving, which I think is cause for great concern. So that next. Stay where you are.
don't tend to tell the Americans what to do in their own country, and usually, the president or the vice president of the United States wouldn't really be interfering in domestic politics in the UK. So yeah, huge part of me says that. But at the same time, I really do think that they have a point, particularly in this case. I mean, these buffer zones are 150 metres away from any abortion clinics. Now, if protesters are standing outside those clinics, they're hurling abuse at women, they're threatening them, then of course, something should be done. They should be arrested.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with my friend and former co-host Alex Phillips, obviously also a presenter here on Talk, and a very, very good one. Every Friday morning, 10 until 1 a.m. Now, Alex, let's talk about police overreach, the worrying notion that we could be descending into a kind of authoritarian state here. Now, over the weekend, two stories emerged. One was in London, where a gang of coppers, 10 or other, smashed down a door. Smashed open a door at a Quaker meeting room where there are a bunch of these middle-class ladies, sort of activists who were plotting little demonstrations about Gaza and Palestine in central London. I mean, I have no interest in them or their silly little activities, but in a democracy they got a right to do that. The police burst in and arrested 6 of them, took them off as if they were murderers or something. Meanwhile, probably even more disconcertingly, you will have read about this up in Hertfordshire. 6 coppers turned up at a loving parents, a middle-class couple, one of whom is a guy called Maxie Allen, who's that's a bloke. He's a radio producer down on Times Radio, part of our company here. Now, Andy and his wife took part in a WhatsApp group for parents, and they were a bit worried about the quality of the head teacher of their kids' school. So they're all going, I don't know about this, maybe we need that kind of conversation. Anyway, they were, both Andy and his wife were arrested, taken, and his partner, I should say, Rosalind Levine, were taken to Hertfordshire Police Station, detained for 8 hours in front of their young daughter, and warned that they could be prosecuted for malicious communication. So their crime was to say something a bit nasty about the school their kids go to other parents. Malicious communication. The school complained. Right. So 5 weeks on from that, the police turned around and said to them, sorry about that, nothing to see here. There was no crime, so you won't be prosecuted. Well, of course there was no crime. Don't be so ridiculous. This, of course, leads on from our friend and colleague at the Daily Telegraph, Alison Pearson, 2 coppers turning up at her house on Remembrance Sunday morning, saying that she may have tweeted something rather troublesome a year ago. This is ludicrous. This is police overreach. This is sinister. It is authoritarian. Guess what? Today, the Chief Constable of the renowned Hertfordshire Constabulary, Andy Prophet, known to his friends as Prophet of Doom, he's not actually, I just made that up, but I think he's a Prophet of Doom. Anyway, he has defended this and said it was perfectly justifiable. They were working within the law. It says the law, and I'm answerable to the law, defines harassment really clearly as any behaviour causing alarm, harassment and distress. There was a lawful reason to arrest. Then he goes on to say, just as the Essex police did with Alison, by the way, subsequent to her saying, how dare you, I'm going to sue you, the Essex police said, we were justified. No, you weren't justified. Anyway, Andy Prophet of Doom goes on to say, we may have needed 6 people, middle-class parents. We may have needed 6 people, 6 officers. No, you didn't. But they didn't all need to be uniformed officers. We didn't need to have 3 marked vehicles and a police van parked outside. We probably could have achieved it with 1 or 2 uniformed officers, and if we needed some people to go on in support, so on and so forth. He also says we probably could have sorted this out in a conversation. Well, I don't think it should have been a conversation involving the police. This should never have been a police matter. So this police overreach and the fact that the police don't see they're doing anything wrong, they feel they're justified in harassing normal, law-abiding citizens for doing lawful things, I think is a very worrying turn of events.
Yeah, and it kind of echoes what we were saying earlier about people in local authorities being paid more than the Prime Minister and doing a rubbish job. Every time you hear from policemen, they're constantly saying, oh, they cut the troop numbers, we haven't got as many forces, we haven't got as many bobbies, austerity, we don't have enough funding, there's not enough of us, we've got all this paperwork to do, it's so difficult. Oh, yeah, we haven't solved 98% of car theft or phone theft because it's all too difficult. Never mind the fact people have dash cams and ring doorbells and are basically going to the police with mugshots saying this guy attacked me last night. Oh, sorry, that's really hard work. We can't do that. We're really stretched. We're under-resourced. And then this many turn up for a WhatsApp chat. Have they not got a triaging system? Did they not ever get told the adage at school, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt you? You would think if someone's phoned up the police and said, oh, someone's being a bit wild in a WhatsApp chat, even if the person, I want to know what the messages said to warrant this, because I can't imagine they would have said much. But even if in that WhatsApp chat they said, I'm going to go with a canister of petrol, I'm going to set fire to that school, raise it to the ground, hellhole that it is. You know, if someone had done that, that might be a bit different. But I don't think that that is what's gone on here. And so I just can't understand how the police have not gone, leave the WhatsApp group if you're upset.
Yeah. Well, where's it? Well, there's no common sense here, and it's way over the top. And let me tell you, Alex, this is what will happen in a country if you have a prime minister who thinks it's okay during the summer riots after Southport to send middle-aged housewives to jail for 3 years. For a few hurty words they put on Facebook. If you have a Prime Minister who feels that preposterously disproportionate form of punishment for people, rather silly people writing silly things on Facebook, if you think that's justified, it's going to lead to police forces behaving like this, way over the top.
And also, I think a lot of what's going on, which we don't talk about enough, is lawfare, right? So when it comes to the Alison Pearson case, and they wouldn't tell her who did it or who had reported or what.
That's right.
There was plenty of suspicions raised about a particular person who I believe worked in the NHS as a doctor or nurse, who seemed to have a sort of slight weird misanthropic obsession with Alison Pearson, that he was probably the person who phoned up the police and said, I didn't like her post from the other day. And so this is also what people are doing now. When people have a grievance with somebody else, if they don't like their politics or they just want to wind them up or harass them, they're phoning up and making complaints to the police about hate speech and non-crime incidents to try and intimidate that person. That is the person, in my eyes, who's committed the crime. They've wasted police time. They're the ones actually inciting harassment by trying to encourage the police to go turn up on someone's doorstep. That is outright nasty bullying behaviour. If I was in charge of the police, actually, who is in charge of the police? Well, it doesn't, if every single authority have a police and crime commissioner?
Yeah. Well, they shouldn't. They should get rid of them because they're useless. I mean, how does it make you feel, Alex? Because you do a lot of great work campaigning for safety for women on the streets of this increasingly dangerous country, particularly in terms of sex attacks, which are rising at a frightening rate. Possibly fueled by the increasing number of foreign men who come to live here who don't quite understand our culture. Now, you do a lot of good work campaigning for increased safety on the streets. But when you read that the police send 6 people round to the house of a middle-aged couple in Hertfordshire, in leafy Hertfordshire, because of messages they've been writing on WhatsApp groups, you think, well, couldn't, I don't know, shall we say, all of those officers, but let's be generous, 4 of them, couldn't they be patrolling the streets to make it a little more safe for people like you? How about that?
Exactly. Wouldn't that be great if all of a sudden we actually took crimes against women seriously? Now, I'm not doing a whole Me Too movement, Jess Phillips thing. What I'm talking about is it's the fact that a lot of women out there are creeped out by the men who loiter around, who leer at them, who follow them. Yes, beautiful. Oh, beauty, come talk to me. Smile. I like you. I want to be your friend. Where are you from? Following you down the road. It's ridiculous. It's like running the blimmin' gauntlet now. If I go out in my dungies looking like a mess, looking like Rick Parfitt to go and buy a pint of milk, they still come and buzz around me and say, I'm like,
Rick Parfitt? Where'd you get that from? Rick Parfitt?
First thing in the morning,
Poor Rick, rest his soul. Nice guy. Carry on, sorry.
That'll icky pop. I'm not sure. It depends on the morning.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. I'm not imagining this. This is happening to lots of women, and it poses a real threat because it just makes you so uncomfortable. I actually now, genuinely, Kev, right? I actually now don't want to go out wearing any clothes that could be considered, seductive. I remember on Valentine's Day, I was going to meet my other half at a restaurant, and I put on knee-high boots. Not, I wasn't sort of dressed up like a Spice Girl or anything, but I put on just a pair of knee-high boots with a semi-high heel, and I had a little furry stock thing that I'd put over.
That's a romantic date. Yeah, you want to look nice, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't exactly anything outlandish. I had just jeans and a jumper on underneath. Yeah. Because I had the audacity to wear boots with a heel and something made with fur, they followed me around as if I was soliciting. And I find myself now thinking, in London, I don't tend to have this outside London. If I go back to Gloucestershire, it's not like this.
Yeah.
In London, I question what I'm wearing and how I look because I don't want to look too attractive out there. That's mad. Well, you know what the end result of this is?
Yeah.
The end result of that.
Your boyfriend's left you. No, I know, it's ridiculous. And this is the sort of thing that Keir Starmer should be worried about. That people like you, and you are, far from alone. There are millions of women who have the same concerns about you, particularly in London. The fact that people like you are worried about, going out on the streets at night, what they look like, what attention they might attract. This is a serious social concern that Keir Starmer's doing nothing about. He's too worried about what's on telly.
Let's be frank, I'm 41, I can handle myself. And frankly, I'm probably a bit too old for most of these ne'er-do-wells loitering around because a lot of these creepy men, the people they really like are the teenage girls. Yeah. They like the 14-year-olds. They like the ones in the school uniform. That's who they want to swap numbers with Snapchat and try and lure back to their lairs. It is the little teenage girls. And the problem is teenage girls are being brainwashed to think, oh, these poor migrants, aren't they lovely? They're all victims. Oh, we must be nice and talk to them, otherwise we're racist, we've got white privilege. They have no idea. And meanwhile, these teenage girls are being told to sort of look like a little Kardashian. And you think this is such a toxic cocktail. And so much of this, look, let's be blatantly honest about what's going on. And it's not everybody from a certain religion, but it's a significant chunk of men from Islam who have very toxic attitudes towards women. It is there in their holy book. They believe that women are sort of original sin, that men can't control their urges, and therefore it's women's responsibility to cover themselves up so they don't provoke men, because men can't control themselves. That is why they get women to wear the hijab and wear niqabs and burqas and all the rest of it. That is such a rotten message that women are dangerous and have to cover themselves up, because if they don't, a man might just come along and assault you or harass you. So if this is what they're being brought up to believe in their culture and back at home, and then they come to Britain and they see schoolgirls, who sort of all the false eyelashes. I mean, it's so dangerous, and we're not allowed to talk about it. Is women's safety really not that valuable in this country? Because if it's not, that makes us less civilised than the hellholes that these people are coming from.
Well, that's what I mean. We need to prioritise issues like women's safety and not send millions of police officers round to harass perfectly decent, law-abiding, middle-class citizens. It's a joke. We're getting everything wrong in this country. I miss you, Alex. Let's do this again very, very soon. Always a pleasure. Alex Phillips, the inimitable Alex Phillips. She'll be with you here on Talk, 10 a.m. Friday. You won't want to miss it. Always a great show. When we come back, your calls. We'll have a little chat. I might read a couple of messages. And in a little while, we're going to be talking about coked up cops. That'll be after the phone calls. Coked up cops, a talk investigation has revealed that an alarming number of officers, police officers, are turning up for work drugged up or drunk. Some of them being sacked, some of them resigning, some of them still working. What is that all about? But next, your calls, 0344499 1000. Stick around, it's good to talk on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Gary Chapman has sent me a message about this Sri Lankan sex offender that for some reason we seem to feel is our responsibility. He says this Sri Lankan sex offender, that £100,000 that we spent on a private jet taking him for emergency medical treatment would be better spent giving him a parachute and flying over Sri Lanka and chucking him out of the plane. Well, you know, I don't think we have to quite do it like that. I mean, I would have thought that the logical solution would be to just send him back to Sri Lanka. But it's nothing to do with us, is it? So what we're saying is this guy arrives in Diego Garcia, arrives in the Chagos Islands, and says, I want to live in Britain. I'm claiming asylum in Britain. Well, you can't have it because you're a sex offender and you're in jail. You've just sexually assaulted women in the Chagos Islands, so you can't really come here because we don't particularly encourage convicted sex offenders to come here and be our residents, so you can't come. And at that point, we should just go, well, that's it. We have nothing more to do with this guy. Instead, because he asked to come here, we seem to treat him like he's our responsibility. And we, British taxpayers, pay £100,000 sending him to get medical treatment. I mean, I don't want the guy to die, I guess, but I don't really care. It's got nothing to do with us. Why are we paying for this guy? Absolute insanity. Right, let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Philippa in Poole in Dorset. Hello, Philippa.
Hi, Kevin. Lovely to speak to you again. This is becoming rather a habit.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
But it's a very nice habit.
Yeah, anytime.
I wanted to say what Alex was saying about the burqa mentality is like really scary, because what Keir Starmer needs to do is not only smash the gangs who are bringing people over in boats and in backs of lorries, He needs to smash the gangs of illegal migrants.
Yeah, smash the migrants.
Standing on street corners, intimidating women as well. It's
the ones who get here. The ones who get here.
Illegally.
Yeah, the ones who get here. There's a problem because they're all put in hotels and various accommodation centres, houses and whatever, and they got nothing to do. They're not allowed to work, so they gather on the streets. And I hear from a lot of my female friends that they can be, well, as you're saying, Philippa, a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, exactly. And the only way we're going to get rid of all this problem and every problem that's associated with it is just by stopping all the benefits and incentives. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again.
Absolutely.
You know, Sweden are doing it, other countries are doing it, they're just stopping all the incentives, and then the migrants are realising this isn't such a wonderful place to be because I'm not getting everything handed to me on a plate. I'll leave and go back to my own country.
Yeah, and once the thing about Britain being the promised land is, I think it was 3 years ago, of all these people who arrive here illegally, you know, they're illegal migrants. They arrive without documents. They arrive on illegal vessels. So they come here unlawfully. We let them in, put them in hotels, 4-star hotels, give them 45 quid a week, free dentists, free doctors, free food, free lawyers, and so on and so forth. We give them all that. And then they apply for asylum, of course. And until three years ago, I think we were allowing 75% of all asylum seeker applicants were allowed to stay. And now, now the government's very proud because they got that number down to 48%. Now, Germany, for example, they allow 12.5% of their asylum seekers to stay. So for some reason, we have a system in this country, Philippa, where if you get here, you've almost made it. We have this really lenient system where we allow everyone to stay, and we need to tighten it up, to say the least. I agree with you totally about stopping all the freebies we give them. No more benefits, no more 45 quid a week, no more free food, no more free hotels, Frank. I agree with you about that. But what would be better would be, as soon as they arrive here, we say, sorry, you've broken our laws. Therefore, you can't have asylum. We will detain you and then we will deport you. Once that message gets out, they'll stop coming. Alternatively, turn the boats around in the middle of the bloody channel. We could try that as well. Either way, we need to send these people a message that they're not going to be allowed to stay. But now what we're doing is sending them a message that not only can they stay, we'll give them a load of free stuff. It's no wonder they keep coming, isn't it?
Sweetheart, I don't understand why more people aren't jumping up and down. I'm really angry at this, more angrier than
they should be.
And so that we get the government to do something about it. I just do not understand it.
Well, look, you know, I have something of a pulpit here, you know, and I scream well, you probably noticed, I scream my head off in fury every day, every night, in every way. And so do some of my fellow talk presenters as well, particularly Mike Graham, Julia Hartley-Brewer. All we're going, stop this madness, stop this. But they don't listen. They don't listen. I don't think they like this country, and I don't think they actually deep down want to stop the migrants. They like them coming here. But every day life gets worse for us. So there you have it. Welcome to Modern Britain, Philippa. Keep calling, Philippa. We'll get you on again. Good to talk. Philippa in Poole in Dorset. Let's go to break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about coked up cops, policemen on cocaine and drinking and drugs, all that. That next. Stick around.
don't tend to tell the Americans what to do in their own country, and usually, the president or the vice president of the United States wouldn't really be interfering in domestic politics in the UK. So yeah, huge part of me says that. But at the same time, I really do think that they have a point, particularly in this case. I mean, these buffer zones are 150 metres away from any abortion clinics. Now, if protesters are standing outside those clinics, they're hurling abuse at women, they're threatening them, then of course something should be done. They should be arrested.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He's former ex-Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Welcome, Mike. Sorry to keep you. Let's get straight into it. I mean, the headline is Coked Up Cops. This is a Talk exclusive and exclusive to this station due to a Freedom of Information request to forces across the land. We have established that 112 coppers were found to be under the influence or in possession of drugs over the past 3 years. A further 83 officers were identified as intoxicated on duty or just before clocking in. Top of the charts is shame, Greater Manchester Police with 80 rozzers busted for drugs and 17 for being drunk at work. And a total of 46 cops and police workers were either sacked or quit following substance abuse investigations. Significantly, our largest force that you used to work for, the Met, the Metropolitan Police here in London, failed to respond to our information request. Now, these figures, we're not talking about hundreds of thousands, but it's quite shocking, really, that we're talking in terms of hundreds. Coppers turning up, clocking on. Before they're clocked on, they're coked up. They've got drugs on them, or they're drunk. They're drunk on duty, or they're wild on cocaine. What is going on?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that really stand out to me. That first, the police will always reflect society, and society uses more drink and drugs, I suppose. But two key issues, really. One is vetting. We know from various police reports into police, like the Casey report, the absolute failure to vet people. When I joined the police, I was actually a soldier in Northern Ireland, but a sergeant still came to the barracks from the Ulster Constabulary, the Royal Ulster Constabulary, who were the local force. So people used to be visited at their home by a sergeant before you joined the police. And there'd be all sorts of face-to-face interviews where people could be sussed out. Now, of course, people can join the police and it's all done online, which sounds very effective and efficient. But until you look into somebody's eyes, you really don't know what they're like and you don't know what they're going to get up to. That's number one. Number two, when I went to Hendon, the police training establishment in London, it was run like an army barracks. I left the army and we went to another army camp where ex-guardsmen marched around, and there was a very disciplined organisation. Now, of course, police officers go to almost like you go to university to do the training. So there's no marching around, there's very little discipline. And so that impacts on the actual behaviour, I would suggest, as a whole. And so those two factors, the vetting, lack of vetting, and secondly, the lack of it being a disciplined service, will have an impact and result in the issues that you've highlighted.
I bet when you were a copper, though, Mike, I bet you took your position in society seriously. You're a policeman. You're an upholder of the law. You must have felt that it was kind of pretty sacred to your job that you don't go around breaking laws. You don't turn up at work with a pocket full of illegal drugs.
Well, I used to spend my time trying to catch people with illegal drugs, never taking them myself.
It's not thinking to be your colleagues.
Exactly, but also I would. People would have a good drink afterwards to blow off steam, but you didn't have a drink before you went on duty. So I just think this ill discipline has crept into the police, and these figures just highlight that.
Yeah, as I say, what is going through these coppers' minds when they turned up to work drunk or on cocaine? I mean, what on earth are they thinking? That's not right, is it?
Well, it's quite incredible, isn't it? I was reading the other day about a Merseyside officer, a female officer, who sort of got drunk, lost a warrant card, and then drove to the police station. She didn't even have to go there. She wasn't working for several hours after. So what in her head possessed her to actually get into a car and drive when you're a police officer and you don't even have to go to the police station? So I don't even understand what she was up to. But somehow the police have got to get into a situation where they're properly vetting all those who join, and it gets back to being a disciplined organisation.
So that's what you think is at the root of this kind of problem, that the application process, the process for getting into the police, has become too lax. You're absolutely right. I remember, 6 months ago, it emerged that many coppers were being accepted into the force and nobody had interviewed them. They just filled out the form and they're in. Well, so the police have got to crack down on that, haven't they? They've got to start seeing applicants, making assessments. Will this person make a decent copper? Because you quite rightly say, Mike, you can't really tell a person until you speak to them, can you?
Absolutely. And like I say, in times past, a very experienced sergeant, somebody with like 20 years service, would have gone to somebody's home, would have seen what they're like, would have asked them questions, would have seen how they live, their family, would have sussed out their habits and what they were like. So that vetting is absolutely critical. And then, as I say, when you go to university, you go there between 9 and 5, you learn your lessons and you go home. If you're at Hendon, you're there 24 hours a day. It's disciplined. People are looking at you all the time. You're going to get sussed out. If you're a bad person, that will spring out at some point in that 24 hours. Somebody will be able to see that. And whilst that discipline has gone, and that looking at somebody for that amount of time, it's just turned into a 9-to-5 job. And being a police officer, like being a nurse or being a firefighter or whatever else, these are not 9-to-5 jobs. These are things where you've got to be utterly committed and committed to doing the right thing.
I like your description of university. You go there for 9 to 5 and then you go. When I was at university, I could barely remember where the bloody college was. I went so rarely. But let me just quickly get you on a topic that is up your street that I was talking to Alex Phillips about just now. Your take on what we learned at the weekend, this heavy-handed cop overreach. We learned that a bunch of coppers smashed down the... It's almost funny. Smashed down the doors of a Quaker meeting room. There are a bunch of old ladies planning demonstrations about Gaza and Palestine. I don't particularly approve of them, but it's a lawful practice. Coppers burst in, arrested 6 of them for no apparent reason. And then, of course, this more egregious case of the middle-class couple with 3 kids, loving parents, who suddenly found 6 coppers on their doorstep, 3 armoured vehicles outside. They were arrested, taken to Hertfordshire Police Station for 8 hours, warned that they face prosecution for malicious communication. Their crime was to be in a WhatsApp group of parents in which they were questioning the efficiency of their kid's head teacher. They were a bit worried about don't know about this, so we could do with a better head teacher. You know what parents are like. And for that, they're arrested. The school complained. They were arrested. 8 hours inside. 5 weeks later, the cops say, well, actually, there was no crime committed here. You don't say. Nothing to see. There will be no prosecution. If I was that couple, I'd sue the police. But Andy Proffitt, who is the Hertfordshire police chief, has said today that he stands by their action. It was totally lawful. He concedes that perhaps it was a bit over the top, didn't maybe need 6 uniformed officers, maybe not 3 armoured vehicles, but that it was totally lawful and that the cops did the right thing. I think in these circumstances what the police should say is, oh my God, we shouldn't have done this. Instead, they justify themselves.
Yeah, so I'm surprised. Andy Proffitt is he's new. Actually, I ever spoke to him. He wants to fight crime, so credit to him. But with this arrest, I really look at it lawfully. What happens though if you arrest somebody, even for murder? You can't just say, I'm arresting you for murder. You have to justify why. So you've got to say, I'm arresting you for murder because I've got to take you to the police station and find all the evidence. Or you can arrest people for theft because I don't know your name and address. I think you might run away. I think you might hurt somebody else. I think you might damage some other property. You've got to justify it. So on this occasion, I can't see how you can justify the arrest because all the evidence was before them. You know, the police had the WhatsApp messages and that's that. What they could have done is written to the couple and said, look, there's been some concerns highlighted. Can you come in, can you make an appointment with us to come into the police station with a solicitor and answer some questions? There is no need to go round there at whatever time of the day and then
in front of the upset of the distraught kids. They're wheeled in. They do 8 hours. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. This isn't North Korea, and more of these top cops have got to work that out. I think it's a very worrying syndrome. Mike, good to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for your time. Former ex, it says former ex. He's former Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. We're going to be back in just a little while. Talk about the Jeremy Bamber case. Stay tuned for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In 20 minutes or so, we'll be taking your calls. 03444991000. You know the issues we're talking about. The migrant crisis, two-tier justice, overbearing, heavy-handed policing, the arrested people who've done nothing wrong, so on and so forth. 03444991000. You send me a WhatsApp voice note if you'd prefer, or you can just send me a message. I'll try and read it out. So all that in just a little while. But first, let's talk about a terrible crime. I don't want to sort of reveal too much of my immense age, but I actually covered this case. I was a very young reporter at the time. I was only 4 years old. It happened 40 years ago. It was the Jeremy Bamber case. A farmhouse in Essex. Horrific scene. An entire family slaughtered, shot to death, shot room by room by room. This guy, Jeremy Bamber, his parents, Neville and June, his adoptive sister, Sheila Caffell, known as Bambi, she was a model, and her 6-year-old twins, Daniel and Nicholas, on August the 7th, 1985, were all found shot to death in a fairly remote farmhouse called White House Farm. 5 years ago, ITV made a drama about it, and Jeremy Bamber still stands as the man convicted for this horrific slaughter of his own family. There were suggestions that there was money to be inherited, and he was after the cash. Now, he always said, it wasn't me, Gov, it was my sister Sheila. These are the adoptive sister, actually, and Neville and June Bamber were Jeremy's adopted parents, mother and father. So adopted sister Sheila, she was a paranoid schizophrenic, and Jeremy always said she did it. But a majority verdict said, no, you did. He got a whole life tariff, so he's in jail till the day he dies, unless he gets out. Now, he has waged a 40-year campaign to prove his innocence. He says his innocence. And, you know, it's come close now and again, but basically it's always been pretty much dismissed. Now, there were some famous shots, photographs, I mean, of him at his parents' funeral, and he turned up. I think he was in custody at the time, but he was in floods of tears, and everybody thought that this was crocodile tears. It was way over the top, and he was acting. But anyway, he went down. He was convicted of these terrible murders, but he says he didn't do it. He said Sheila did it. Now, something dramatic has now happened. A retired CID officer who was part of the case has broken ranks after reading Bamber's submissions to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. Bamber's now 64, so he was 24 when this crime happened. And this CID officer has corroborated Bamber's suggestion that when coppers got to the scene of the crime, they tampered with the evidence. They moved things around. And as such, all the evidence was compromised, and that he didn't do it. So this officer is saying, it looks to me as if Jeremy Bamber's got a point, and I know because evidence was tampered with to make the conviction a little easier. Now, Jeremy Bamber, having covered this case, I'm going to put my cards on this. I always thought he was as guilty as sin. But, I suppose I'm not kind of that encyclopedic in my knowledge of the details, but I always thought he was as guilty as sin. But a growing number of people that, we should respect, I mean, they're not nutters, are saying, look, this may be a dreadful miscarriage of justice. A lot of people, friends of Jeremy Bamber, an increasingly large group, are rallying to Jeremy Bamber's cause. Of course, he remains in prison. One of the people who is calling for at least a review of the evidence is the brilliant and tireless human rights campaigner. He's the director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation, and he is indeed Peter Tatchell. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Great to join you.
Thank you very much. Well, tell me why it is that you think Jeremy Bamber, do you actually think he's innocent, or are you just calling for a review?
Well, first let me say, it is pretty extraordinary for a retired senior CID officer to come out and say that he believes, based on his inside knowledge, that evidence at the scene of the crime was tampered by the police. That this meant that if a crime scene, in his opinion, if a crime scene is tampered with, it means that evidence put before a jury is highly questionable and dubious. And that in these circumstances, he's suggesting that it cannot be that Jeremy Bamber received a fair trial because evidence was manipulated. Whether it was intentional or inadvertent doesn't matter. the fact that he is saying, and he had first, apparently, he had sight of a video which was taken at the original crime scene, which doesn't square with the evidence the police presented in court, and that video has since been destroyed, presumably by the police. The whole case does reek of so many anomalies. Now, I'm not saying that Jeremy Bamber is innocent, but I'm certainly saying that he did not get a fair trial. His conviction is unsafe, given the masses of evidence that was never presented at his trial. In 2017, I wrote to the then Chief Constable of Essex, Stephen Kavanagh, asking for the disclosure of over 100 items of evidence which were never presented at the trial. Over 100 items, photographs, documents, police handbooks, etc. Chief Constable Kavanagh did not deny that that evidence existed. He did not say that this is untrue. What he and subsequent chief constables have said is that they are satisfied that all the relevant evidence was presented at the time. So here we have Jeremy Bamber, has his legal team, through me and others, have requested the presentation of this suppressed evidence. And, you know, you can't have a fair trial if the evidence is suppressed, and we're being denied it by the police. The police are claiming that all the relevant evidence has been presented. Well, the police are in no position, no lawful legal position, to decide what evidence is relevant and what is not. Under British law, they are required to present to the defence all the evidence in their possession. That has not happened. It has not happened, and the police admit that. So, to me, there's a lot of suspicion about this case, and I think it does point to some kind of police cover-up, or possibly even police corruption. And I definitely think that Jeremy Bamber did not receive a fair trial, given that this evidence was never presented to the jury.
This CID officer, the whistleblower, if you like, has corroborated the claim that Essex police, I'm quoting here, changed the evidence, disturbed the murder scene at White House Farm hours after the shooting, with items removed and replaced before the photos were taken. Now, back in those days, as I say, I'm so ancient, I actually covered this case. That kind of practice by the police wasn't unknown, if you know what I mean. They would make cases a little bit more easy to prove than perhaps they should have been. So I would give this some credence. And the other thing that I think is worthy of note is it is pretty uncommon that for 40 years, as I say, I remember covering this case, I had not a jot of doubt in my mind that Jeremy Bamber was guilty. But that isn't to say that that was a true statement. That was what I felt, and so did everyone around that. You know, trust me, the Fleet Street press corps had him guilty from day one. There's a lot of evidence to say he may well have been guilty. But what I think is interesting, Peter, is that this guy, Jeremy Bamber, has never stopped saying, I didn't do it. He has never given up this case. It is pretty unusual for someone after 40 years to still be banging at the same locked door, if you see what I mean, to still say, no, 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 I didn't do it. So the sheer longevity of his campaign to prove his, what he says is his definite innocence, I think in itself is worth thinking about.
Absolutely. And if he did admit that he did it, there might be a way in which he could eventually be granted parole. Unlikely, given he's got a whole life tariff, but there are certain ways around that. So that does make it all the more convincing that he's maintained his innocence, even though it sort of counts against him and is being used, that he's an unapologetic killer. The other thing to point out is that there have been a number of court orders for Essex police to present to the defence all the evidence that they've withheld. And Essex police have refused to comply with those court orders. The Criminal Cases Review Commission, which is supposed to ensure that such court orders are enforced, has refused to demand that Essex Police divulge the information. Shocking, abject betrayal by the Criminal Cases Review Commission of its legal obligation to ensure that the defence has the evidence that the police have been ordered to hand over.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the whistleblower says that Essex Police took video footage of the murder scene, a scene of true horror, of course, which was withheld from the jury and withheld from Bamber's defence team and later destroyed. I mean, this guy does seem to know what he's talking about, so something is going on here. Do you feel that the tectonic plates are shifting a bit, that there may be some progress towards a retrial or some redress for Mr. Bamber?
Well, if there's any justice, of course there should be a review by the Court of Appeal and possibly a complete retrial. No one's saying just let Jeremy Bamber out. There are serious questions about discrepancies in evidence. New Yorker magazine did, I think, a 50-page major feature which set out more than a dozen major discrepancies in the police evidence which point to a flawed and unjust conviction. So yes, we have to have some kind of process, and the fact that the Criminal Cases Review Commission has been sitting on this case despite all the new evidence presented for so many years is so profoundly shocking. You all remember the case of Andrew Malkinson, who was wrongly convicted of rape, and the Criminal Cases Review Commission sat on the evidence to prove he was innocent for years and years and years. They are totally a shockingly incompetent, some might say corrupt body. I wouldn't go that far, but they are just a total failure when it comes to doing their job, which is to review possible cases of miscarriages of justice.
Yeah, the thing that, you know, don't take this wrong, Peter, but you're old enough to remember this case as well. It shocked the nation, and so it should have done. I mean, this was a ostensibly happy family, you know, a daughter with her 2 kids, little boys, the parents, Jeremy's whole family suddenly shot to death in most horrific, with a shotgun, point blank range, through the blankets while they slept. It shocked the nation. Now, as I say, what was it, 5 years ago, 2020, ITV made a drama about it called White House Farm. I don't think that did it Jeremy Bamber any favours, because that very much depicted him as the guilty party. That notwithstanding, though, to go back to the original event, August the 7th, 1985, when you get a case like this, that, you know, is all over the front pages, all over the television news and everything, it does put the police under enormous pressure. The nation demands you solve this crime. You get the killer, you get the perpetrator, and you put them behind bars. So I guess at the undertone of this is the suspicion that coppers, feeling the pressure to nail someone, fiddled with the evidence and made sure that Bamber took the rap. That would be what he's saying. But that is a very plausible scenario, isn't it?
Well, the initial reaction and conclusion of the police was that the murder was committed by Sheila Caffel, the adopted sister, who had a history of schizophrenia and other mental illnesses. Poor dear, I feel very sorry for her. And who had threatened in the months previous that she would kill her own children. Yet the police dismissed that. And we know from the logbooks and handbooks that eventually come to pass that, in fact, Jeremy Bamber was outside the farmhouse with the police at the moment when this movement and disturbance was heard inside the house. So if he was outside with the police and there was someone making movement and disturbance inside the house, the question is, who was that? And it certainly wasn't Jeremy Bamber.
Do you sense, Peter, that something may be about to happen with this long-running case, that perhaps there will be a review, perhaps a little light at the end of the tunnel for Jeremy Bamber at long last?
Well, I hope so, but I'm not sure, because despite all the submissions made to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, they've just sat on his case for years and years and years. As I said, they won't even press Essex Police to divulge the suppressed evidence that the court ordered them to divulge. They won't even do that. It does strike me as a lot of people in powerful positions have got a lot to hide, because this case has clearly been mishandled from the very get-go. And there are a lot of people who, are going to have more than egg on their faces if this case is eventually brought fully to light and the conviction overturned. What I thought was really interesting and shocking is that the retired CID officer who made these recent revelations about the evidence in the case being tampered with, he has declined to allow his identity to be made public because he fears reprisals, presumably reprisals from other police officers.
Yeah.
And of course, that would be understandable. If he's telling the truth, then a lot of police officers or former police officers who were involved in the case at the time could face jail sentences for perjury and for tampering with evidence.
Well, I'll tell you what, Peter, I think we should take this case very seriously, if only because you've taken it up. If someone like you takes a case up, I know you don't do these things lightly. So I'm revising my view after all these years, and we'll follow this case with great interest. And thank you very much for your time. Good to talk to you. Director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation, Peter Tatchell there. Right, next up. Fascinating case, though, isn't it? Fascinating case. Honestly, I can remember it like yesterday. I can remember turning up there. A place, what was it called? Town called Cottleshaw or something, Cottleshow, in the middle of Essex. And I remember the village and everything, and the farm was outside. And handily, all the Fleet Street reporters, they loved covering that case because they had a really good pub in the middle of the village. So we spent a lot of time there putting our heads together. And covering that horrific case. I was so say happy days, not quite that, but you understand. A long time ago, but fascinating. For the first time in 40 years, I'm thinking maybe he didn't do it. I never had any doubts, but maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't. So look up the case. It's fascinating. Maybe give me a call about it if you know anything. 0344 499 1000. Got a WhatsApp voice note, a WhatsApp note here from Glyn. Thanks very much, Glyn. Fulham 1-0 down, just saying. Great show. Thanks, Glyn. Yeah. Well, you're actually wrong. I've just heard it's 2-0. So we're not losing 1-0 anymore. We're losing 2-0. God, we're on a good run. Lost a 3-0 to Palace on Saturday. Now 2-0 to Liverpool. One day we'll score a goal, although don't bet the farm on it. Next up, your calls, your WhatsApp voice notes and your messages, all of that. The floor is open to you. 0344 499 1000. Stay tuned.
tend to tell the Americans what to do in their own country, and usually, the president or the vice president of the United States wouldn't really be interfering in domestic politics in the UK. So yeah, huge part of me says that. But at the same time, I really do think that they have a point, particularly in this case. I mean, these buffer zones are 150 metres away from any abortion clinics. Now, if protesters are standing outside those clinics, they're hurling abuse at women, they're threatening them, then of course, something should be done. They should be arrested.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Here's a message from Kenny in Edinburgh. Hi, Kev. These illegal and legal asylum seekers are not seeking asylum, but are seeking a lifestyle that they don't want to have to earn. They are not fleeing anything, but are fleeing towards something, and we have to pay for it. Yeah, a lot of them become big burdens on our already overburdened welfare system. Pretty crazy, isn't it? You know, people come here, they apply for asylum, we let them stay, and before we know where they are, they're claiming benefits and asylum. And it's not really surprising they start claiming benefits, because when they get here, the moment they get here, we start giving them 45 quid a week welfare. You know, literally the moment they arrive. Why do we do that, do you think? This is from Steve in Bromsgrove. He said, stop saying earning, re Town Hall Fat Cats. They do not earn, they take from the taxpayer. They are paid, they do not earn. Well, I'm sure some of them work hardish, but you do wonder what it is they're doing. They're not certainly working hard enough to make the boroughs that they mismanage run properly, are they? Nearly every local council, as far as I can work out, is going to hell in a handcart. Absolutely disaster. I'm going to talk to somebody, hopefully in Birmingham in a little while, who lives there. The disaster, the catastrophe unfolding there due to years of financial problems. Their council tax is sky high. They got rats the size of cats running around. They've got garbage up to their necks, and that is Britain's second city. So we'll see if we can get hold of somebody to talk about life in Rat Town, otherwise known as Birmingham. I'll read some more messages in a little while, but first let's go up to lovely Whitley Bay and talk to Brian. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Kev. I've just wondered, right, for some time, these so-called asylum seekers who come to this country with so-called their shirts on their backs, where are they getting this money to give to the boat, you know, to the people smugglers? I mean, how much does it cost to get across from France to Britain? Is it about 50,000 or something?
Well, I mean, it depends. The other day I read that the standard issue price was £1,000, but I read today in The Sun, Albanians talking about it being £3,000. But it's not cheap. But I think, Brian, what you're getting at is where do these people get this money from? Well,
where they're storing them, if they're in camps in France, right, where they're putting the money down the socks.
That's a really good point. Where do they keep their money? It's not likely they're going to have bank accounts, you know, the Royal Bank of Calais or something, is it?
Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, if the so-called jungle, the camp, someone would, when you're asleep, someone would come and nab your money when you're asleep, so where they're obviously hiding this money to, you know, to
yeah, it's a very good point. But
I've always wondered that.
They've got some way of doing it, that's for sure. It could be, if you think about it. You know, if you or I go to France, we can get money out of the cash machines there. It could be they're doing it that way, just by the old ATM cards. But it's a very good point. But I think the thing you have to stress, Brian, is, you know, there's this idea, you know, they're fleeing war, they're fleeing torture. Well, most of them, I don't believe them. You know, it's not true, and that's a fact. Most of them aren't fleeing war and torture. But the idea that they're somehow all poor, is a misnomer. That's not true. You know, look at what they're dressed in. Many of them turn up here wearing designer gear, flash trainers, all of that. And they've got money, you know, and they pay for their voyage over the English Channel to get here. So they're not poverty-stricken, most of them. In fact, if they were, as you quite rightly implied, Brian, they wouldn't be able to afford their tickets to get onto the small boats. But what do you think we should do?
France.
Yeah?
Kev, why can't I not get a house in France? If they've got that kind of money hanging around, why can't I not put a deposit down on a property in France and look for work in France instead of coming to Britain?
Well, because France isn't the promised land. We don't give them free doctors, free dentists, free four-star hotels, free food, 45 quid a week, and free lawyers to fight their case to stay here. France doesn't do all that for them. We do all of that. That's why they don't stay in France. They can't wait to get to the promised land, and that is soft-top sucker Britain. We are a bunch of suckers, Brian. We really are.
It'll never change, Kev. Honestly, it'll never change. It'll be coming here every single day, years to come.
I think you're right. I hate to admit it, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of light at the end of the tunnel, does there? Particularly with this government. Maybe one day we'll get a proper government, maybe reform or something like that. Nigel Farage might sort it out. But this government, Keir Starmer, human rights lawyer, Labour, socialists, they don't even want to stop these migrants. So I think we're a bit screwed for the next 4 years or so. Brian, very nice to talk to you. Good call. Thank you. Call me again. Brian in Whitley Bay there. Let's go to break, take more calls after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's do some WhatsApp voice notes before we go back to the phones. First of all, here's Rob on Keir Starmer.
He has no idea and no clue, and he just hasn't a clue how to do anything. He lies his way into office. It's all down to just patriotism and passion. And right now, like, as an Irishman, I can see Britain are actually fighting to actually be British. Sorry about that, but that's the facts.
Yeah, it would be nice if Britain was a bit more British, wouldn't it, really, to be honest with you? It gets less and less British every damn day, doesn't it? Leon here on the Chagos Islands.
Who was America paying their rent to rent the islands? I'm assuming it was to us if the islands are our territories. So if we're now giving up the islands to Mauritius, and we're paying to do that, aren't we also losing the income from America leasing the islands to us as well? Because I assume that's now going to go to Mauritius. The whole thing just seems crazy to me.
That's a good question, Leon. I think you might be right. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. It's bizarre, this deal. I mean, you know why it is? It's Richard Hermer, who's the Attorney General. He hates Britain. North London lawyer, just like North London lawyer Keir Starmer. These old dinosaurs from the 1970s, these old socialists, they're all about sort of dismantling the British Empire. The remnants of colonialism have to be destroyed. That's what it's all about. Oh, you know, we shouldn't have any proper territories abroad. Let's make Britain weak. Honestly, these people, they're just relics from another age. Unfortunately, they're in government. Right, we've got a couple more voice notes. We'll play those out a bit later. First of all, though, let's go back to the phones and talk to Chris in Cambridgeshire. Hello again, Chris. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kev.
Yeah.
What your chap said a little while ago about the so-called earnings.
Yeah.
These people, I would love
You mean
to
the council, the town hall billionaires, yeah.
I would love to see some records of what actual income has been generated by that man.
Yeah, well,
it makes him worth 600,000 a year.
Yeah, 651,000. We don't technically know whether it's a man or a woman.
That person.
But that isn't even the chief executive of Hampshire Council. That's someone who's in charge of leisure and
even
business.
as a chief executive, is he worth 600,000?
None of them are worth this amount of money. How can any of them be worth more than the Prime Minister? And we learned today. How can it be worth more money to run a local borough than it is worth less money to run the actual country? It's ridiculous.
Worse than pigs at a trough.
I know, but this is the way this country works. This is the way the House of Commons works. This is the way that lot in Westminster work. Look at them. You know, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, spending £250,000 of our money, glamorously jet-setting around the world, doing God knows what over 2 very expensive years. What did we learn over the weekend? That
we are completely being destroyed.
And we're being taken for a ride.
Buried.
It's the public sector. People who work in the public sector are taking the rest of us for a ride. I mean, what about that MP we learned about, Chris, over the weekend that has been charging us, the taxpayers, 900 quid a year to look after a dog?
Yeah.
What's that got? You know, what's going on? What is that about? Honestly, it's the public sector. It is out of control, and these people in these town halls are taking us all for a ride, and they're doing a terrible job. And the fact that our council tax keeps rocketing, keeps going up, and we get worse and worse services, what could that be due to? Could it be that these people on the top floor of the town hall are paying themselves more and more money, pocketing more and more of their long-suffering residents' money? It's a disgrace, Chris. It really is. Good to talk to you, though, as always, mate. Good call. Chris in Cambridgeshire. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk to Tina in Spain. Tina, stay where you are.
tend to tell the Americans what to do in their own country, and usually, the president or the vice president of the United States wouldn't really be interfering in domestic politics in the UK. So yeah, huge part of me says that. But at the same time, I really do think that they have a point, particularly in this case. I mean, these buffer zones are 150 metres away from any abortion clinics. Now, if protesters are standing outside those clinics, they're hurling abuse at women, they're threatening them, then of course something should be done. They should be arrested.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Susan asks, is it true that Sadiq Khan has rejected having a London grooming gang investigation? I believe it is true, Susan, but then again, why wouldn't he, considering the national government has also rejected such an investigation and inquiry? We need an inquiry, but they're not going to give us one, so tough luck. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to new caller, always like a new caller, as you know. Tina in Spain. Hello, Tina. You want to talk about the Jeremy Bamber case? What would you like to say?
Yeah. I worked for a polygraph company for 3 years.
What is a polygraph company? What do polygraphs do? What are they? Is that like a truth test? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's passed 2 polygraphs in the last 15 years. Now, at the moment, there's new technology out, which is eye detect. And I personally feel, because I researched a lot into this,
yes,
I personally feel he'd pass that too. And if he does, then the likelihood, in considering what you were discussing earlier,
yeah, go on,
it's probably that his sister did actually do it.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing case. As I was saying to Peter Tatchell, I did actually cover that case because I'm so ancient. And, we're all convinced, no doubt about it. But the more I talk to people like you, Peter Tatchell as well, the more I look into it, particularly this new development with this former CID officer who said the evidence was completely tampered with, the more I do see that there may be cause for doubt. Interesting what you say, Tina, about a polygraph, because although they're not technically admissible in law, they can be pretty good, accurate point as to whether or not someone's telling the truth. And you're telling me that Jeremy Bamber has passed 2 of those tests in the past 15 years, yeah?
Yeah.
What you've obviously looked into it. What's your feeling here?
I think it's more likely that his sister did it. And the reason that I say that is because with polygraphs, as you've just said, they're not evidence as such, but the police do use them to go and look further into something if somebody passes the polygraph. They use them particularly with paedophiles. Now, as far as I'm concerned, he's passed 2, and I reckon that if he did an eye detect, which is much, much more accurate, really, I think he'd pass that too. And if he did, then there is a real case for the police to look further into it, or the Justice Department, because he will have spent 40 years in prison for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the case that this was a miscarriage of justice, and the sister, who I remember, she was a model, wasn't she? She used to call herself Bambi. Sheila was her real name. And bearing in mind that both Jeremy and Sheila, Bambi if you like, were adopted kids. Their parents adopted them, so they were not blood relatives. But she was a paranoid schizophrenic. She had made threats to kill her own kids. And if it is the case that Sheila did it and then somehow topped herself, committed suicide, shot herself at the end of this, and that Jeremy Bamber didn't do it, this is going to be one of the worst miscarriages of justice in British legal history. A poor guy doing 40 years for a crime he did not commit. Outrageous, eh?
Well, if you look at the Innocence Project in America, they have actually proven that 386 people that were sitting on death row actually shouldn't have been there. So it's quite feasible.
Yeah.
He didn't do it.
It's very intriguing, but as I say, it's a man's life. If he went down wrongly and has done 40 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit, it just doesn't bear thinking about, but it is looking to me as if it could be possible. Tina, fascinating new evidence from you there. Whereabouts in Spain are you?
In Almeria.
How lovely. Well, look, keep in touch. If you get any more developments on this, do give me a call. Call me about anything, in fact. Nice to talk. Thank you. Tina in Spain. Here is a message from Jackie. Hi, Kev. Didn't I read recently that Christianity is now the minority religion in several communities throughout the UK? So are the indigenous populations. So in these areas, white Christians can look forward to preferential justice. I see what you're getting at. Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it somehow. But yeah, I think Christianity is a minority religion in some of these places in the north. Which, you know, I'm not saying this in a pejorative way, but basically they become Muslim communities. But listen, I had last night, we had as a guest Amy Gallagher from the New Culture Forum. And I was talking to her about this MP, Tahir Ali, who's campaigning. He's not the only one. There are 7 MPs in Parliament campaigning for a new airport in somewhere called Mirpur. In Kashmir. I've been there actually. Right at the north of India, between India and Pakistan. I think it's ruled by. He's campaigning for a new airport. He says it's very important. They've written to Starmer and said very important that Mirpur has its own airport in Kashmir. We're campaigning for this. These are British MPs representing British constituency. Tahir Ali represents a constituency that is currently under about 5 foot of rubbish up to your necks, cats the size of rats roaming the streets, and he's campaigning for an airport in Kashmir. Amy's tweeted about our conversation yesterday. He said, in recent months, Muslim MPs have promoted cousin marriage. That's right, there's an MP that thinks we should allow first cousins to marry because that's what they do in Central Africa, in the Middle East. That's what Muslims do. Cousin marriage. We're against it because there's evidence that it causes, cerebral challenges. May affect, it's not good for kids to come from, we would classify it as a form of incest, wouldn't we? So marrying your first cousin is illegal in this country, but at least one MP thinks it should be legalised because that's what happens in Central Africa and the Middle East. Oh, well, that's all right then. Also, the Tahir Ali, the same guy, he is calling for laws against burning the Quran. Laws against sacrilegious acts against the religious texts, including, well, as to say, to be fair, the Bible, etc. You should be able to burn the Quran if you want to. Should be able to burn the Bible if you want to. Religious texts in a modern democracy, they can't be protected by medieval laws. I'm not saying, don't take it up as a hobby. I don't encourage it. But if you want to demonstrate by burning the Quran or the Bible, you should be able to do it in a free democracy. It's 2025, not 1525. As I say, also they're campaigning now for Britain to build an airport in Pakistan, in Kashmir. Amy concludes saying, these people have no loyalty to this country or our culture. What's going on, folks? What's going on? 0344499 1000. Let's go back to we'll play a quick couple of WhatsApp voice notes. Have we done Judy? This is the Sri Lankan asylum seeker.
Now, if you were head at Foreign Office, wouldn't you say, right, I want to know who sanctioned this and find out and, just tick them off and tell them not to do it again. But nobody will, you know, because they just treat taxpayers' money like confetti. Oh, throw it a bit more at somebody, throw a little bit more. They really are. They're a set of Philistines.
Good point, Julie. Good point. And Isabel Oakeshott was exactly right. Who authorised Britain paying £100,000 for a Sri Lankan sex offender to be flown from the Chagos Islands to the Middle East for emergency medical treatment after he tried to commit suicide because Britain, quite rightly, wouldn't let him into the country? Why are we paying for him? Well, the only responsibility, it seems to me, that we have for him is he said, I want to live in Britain. So we go, OK, we'll pay for everything then. It's ridiculous. I don't want to be uncharitable towards this guy, although I'm not a big fan of sex offenders. But it's not our responsibility. Why? Why? Whose idea was it that British taxpayers' money should be used to ferry this guy from the Chagos Islands to the Middle East in a private jet for 100,000 quid? Who made that decision? We have the right to know, I think. Here's Steve on migrants.
Here's the thing, why don't the government just come clean, right? They don't want us no more. I'm talking about the native British people. They want us replaced. So instead of spending the millions or billions giving away to Chagos and housing all these illegal migrants and paying for their driving tests, medical care and all that, why don't they instead pay us to go and set us up somewhere different and escape and somewhere nice like what they're doing for the migrants? But they won't. It's absolutely sinister and it's scary.
That's what it is, Steve. Sinister and scary. Something's going on. They're taking this country away from us, it seems to me. We're losing Britain, aren't we? Thanks to this government, these people who don't like borders, who want to let in any foreigner who wants to come here. You don't even have to come here these days for us to start giving you money. Just say you want to live here and we'll give you £100,000 for a private jet flight. No, that's not mad, is it, at all? Finally, here's Lindsay on the migrants again.
Hi, Kev. If we just stop the madness of using British taxpayers' money to fund foreigners to come into this country and abuse the system, all these virtue-signaling do-gooders, when are they going to realise that we're actually funding modern-day slavery and human trafficking? These migrants aren't paying cash on the French beaches to get in these dinghies. They owe a debt. They come over here, they're working, not getting paid a fair wage, and the money doesn't go to them. It goes to the gang leaders who they owe the money to. It's plain and simple. I don't understand why people can't see it.
It is plain and simple, Lindsay, but I'm afraid we are living in Alice in Wonderland territory these days. Nothing quite makes sense. And the powers that be just make the ridiculous decisions all the time. Look at these judges, these immigration judges. Oh, we can't send him back home because it's Albania and his son doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets. So he's allowed to stay. Unbelievable. Let's talk to Jerry in Burton-on-Trent. Hello, Jerry.
Kev, what a privilege again. J.D. Vance was so right when he said Britain is the only country who's got a Muslim country with its finger on the nuclear button. My God.
Yeah, it's good. That is a really good point.
Now, the thing is, Kev, I've got to put the record straight because I saved it up especially for your show. I've been listening to Carly Pete. I've been listening to the earlier show today with, God, her name's just gone. How can I forget?
What, Julia Hartley-Brewer?
Of course.
Yeah, I often try to forget her name, but it's impossible. No, love Julia. No, it's just a joke. Carry on, mate. Sorry.
She's fantastic. Well, you know, she had Brendan O'Neill on today.
Yes, I heard. Yeah, come.
All three of them singing the praises of this woman, Mahmood or whatever her name is.
Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, yes.
Now, let's get the record straight here, Kev. This issue wouldn't have even come up were it not for Robert Jenrick bringing it up in the House of Commons, asking for the law to change to ensure this would happen. She apparently dismissed it and said, oh, no, that won't be necessary, as if to say, oh, I've got a nice little cosy arrangement with this sentencing committee. And it's only because he's raised the issue, it's got the profile. She refused his amendment to put it into law, and yet she's taken all these platitudes as if she's the hero of the Labour Party, this hapless government, who's decided to, do something for two-tier justice.
Well, I think to be fair, I mean, I doubted that she was genuine about trying to stop this two-tier justice, but she has stopped it. And to be fair, Keir Starmer said he didn't want it either. He wrote to the Sentencing Council as well. So they've been as good as their word. They have actually stopped this outrageous two-tier dictat.
But what would have happened if Jenrick hadn't raised the profile?
It could be that I mean, she can't claim, Shabana cannot claim she didn't know because one of her staff is on the Sentencing Council. There's only 17 people on it. So I don't quite know what's going on here, but I think the only thing we can take some solace from, Jerry, is we got a decent result in the end. So at least you have to thank, in this world, with this government, you have to thank God for small mercies, mate. You really do. Jerry, good call. Always a pleasure. Call me again. Jerry in Burton-on-Trent. Petri Hoskin will be in just a little while to tell you what she's got lined up for your entertainment from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. But before Petri enters the studio, let's talk to David in London. Hello, David. Do you want to talk about council workers' pay?
Hi, Kevin. That's right, yeah. I just want to say, I think also we need to look at the government buildings. A lot of them are in really super prime locations, Kevin. I mean, I can only assume that these staff, they need somewhere, that they can have their expensive lunches.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, as I say, my view is that increasingly we have a disproportionate relationship between the public sector and the rest of us. And the public, when I was younger, the public sector, the thing about work, my dad was a civil servant. So the thing about working for the civil servant in its service, or even a local council, was that you didn't earn as much money, but you had job security and you had very good pensions. Which everybody thought was fair enough, a good deal, Now, they have very good pensions, job security, and they earn a damn fortune. We're being taken for a ride.
And it's not just the leaders. All of the managers underneath them, they're going to have inflated salaries as well.
Well, exactly. It's a scam, mate. We are being taken for a ride. We're being conned on a serial basis by these public sector people, particularly, these local councils. It's a disgrace, paying each other 400 grand a year, to run the borough of nowhere in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It is taking our money and carving it up among themselves. It's as simple as that. You're quite right, David, with you all the way. Good call as always. Thanks for ringing. Ring me again. David in London there. Well, that's about it for me tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place, right here on Talk for another edition of The Public. The Public, it's not even called that, is it? The Political Asylum. The Public Asylum will be back, like public urinals or something.
That's exactly what I
thought. The Political Asylum will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. In the meantime. Well, anyway, let's just give this up. Petri Hoskin is in the studio. What have you got coming up on your show?
Well, Russia has now been designated formally by us as being a danger to national security. At the same time...
Really?
Yeah, at the same...
You don't say!
I know. And at the same time, of course, we hear that Vladimir Putin is conscripting an extra 160,000 soldiers. So why, if peace is on the cards, does he need a bigger military?
Do you think peace is on the cards?
Look, it's supposed to be. I don't think it is.
Do you think it's on the cards?
No, of course I don't. But he wants to have a military or an army as bigger than the US. So why? So I'm going to be talking to a Russia specialist about what Putin is up to.
Tell you what would be good. It would be good if we in the West stop kidding ourselves that
we've got to know who he is. We know who he is. He's not going to. He's not going to
stop kidding ourselves that Putin is losing, that Russia are losing.
Well, we've got to stop kidding ourselves that Russia is going to do anything we want it to do, because